Popeye, the haunted park ranger. Once upon a time, deep in the heart of a vast national park, Popeye the sailor man found himself far removed from the heroic days of his youth. Once a strong, confident sailor who fought pirates and saved the day with nothing but his muscles and a can of spinach, Popeye had now become a shadow of his former self. He had become a park ranger, yes, but not by choice. The sea had rejected him. He'd been cast off, a casualty of his own vices. His days were now spent in solitude, alone in the ranger station, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. The man who once had the power to fight anything with a single fist now struggled to get out of bed some mornings. The bitter sting of alcohol dulled his mind, and the deep loneliness he felt really took a toll on him. Olive Oil, his longtime love, had left him. Bluto, the man who had once been his bitter rival, was now nothing more than a distant memory. The only things Popeye had to keep him company were the trees and the animals in the woods. But little did our famous hero know he was not alone. In fact, Popeye was about to face his toughest challenge. It was another cold evening when Popeye first encountered the creature. Popeye, half drunk as usual, leaned against the wooden railing of his porch, his eyes half open as though he could fall asleep at any moment. His fingers trembled as he slowly lit a cigarette. Call it a sixth sense, but for some reason he had a feeling something wasn't right. Suddenly, he heard something in the distance. He squinted his eyes, trying to get a better view into the area where the trees were, trying to see through the thick darkness of the night. Then it emerged. A giant, black, wolf-like creature, its eyes glowing red, stepped out from the forest. The wolf was foaming at the mouth. It was significantly larger than any regular wolf and had the physique of an animal that had been in the gym 5 times a week. This animal looked like a pure hunting machine, with every scar on its fur and every muscle seeming like trophies earned from countless battles. Popeye's heart raced as he stumbled backward, his alcohol-fueled mind trying to make sense of what he was seeing. It wasn't just a wolf. It was something much darker. This animal was a hunter, and a slightly drunk Popeye was easy prey. The creature let out a deep howl. It stared at Popeye intensely for a while, then proceeded to move closer. Popeye froze. His body felt like lead, paralyzed with fear. He had faced pirates and villains, but this was something else entirely. This wolf looked like it feasted on pirates and villains as a snack. The wolf circled Popeye, as if savoring his fear. In that moment, Popeye saw flashes of his past, the battles, the victories, and then the sharp decline. The days when he had been a sailor, full of strength, pride, and hope, all those days felt so distant. Now what was he? A washed-up park ranger with no belief in himself, a man who couldn't even stand up to a terrifying beast in his own backyard. His mind raced through so many emotions in a matter of seconds. The alcohol, the loneliness, the endless days of self-loathing. He had tried to escape the pain, but it only made it worse. As the creature howled again, this time much louder, Popeye stumbled to the ground. "I ain't got it in me," he muttered to himself, tears beginning to form in his eyes. "I ain't the man I used to be." Just then, a familiar voice broke through the drunken fog of Popeye's despair. "Popeye, no!" Olive Oil came running toward him from the darkened woods. She had heard the creature's howl from miles away and knew Popeye needed her, even though he was too proud and self-reliant to know it himself. Popeye looked up at Olive, his heart heavy with guilt. "Olive, I can't. I've lost it. I'm not the man you think I am. I can't fight this. I'm not strong anymore." Olive rushed to his side. "Popeye, don't say that. You're stronger than you think. You just need to believe in yourself again. You've faced far worse, and you've come out on top. You just need to find that courage inside you." For a moment, Popeye felt a flicker of hope, but the creature's growl brought him back to reality. It was closing in on them, slowly stalking its prey. Popeye was still weak, still unsure. Olive looked at him, and in her eyes, Popeye saw the love they had once shared, the love that had never really left, even through all his mistakes. She believed in him. Maybe, just maybe, it was time he believed in himself again. Suddenly, the creature sprinted towards them with terrifying speed. Olive screamed as Popeye instinctively threw himself in front of her, pushing her aside to protect her. The creature's sharp claws grazed his shoulder, and Popeye winced in pain. But something inside him stirred, a whisper barely audible, yet so powerful. Spinach. It was all he needed. Popeye dug into his pocket, pulling out the old can of spinach that he had carried for weeks, forgotten and abandoned like the hero he once was. The can felt heavy in his hand, but it was also a lifeline, a reminder of the power he had once commanded. Without thinking, Popeye opened the can and shoveled the spinach into his mouth. The instant the spinach hit his tongue, the familiar surge of strength flooded through him. His muscles bulged, his vision cleared, and a fierce determination filled his heart. Popeye was back! The creature, sensing Popeye's sudden transformation, hesitated. It was no longer the thing that had haunted the woods. In fact, Popeye realized something terrible. It was not a creature at all. It was a manifestation of Popeye's own fears, guilt, and self-doubt. The beast was the very thing that had been haunting him for years. It wasn't just in the woods, it was within him. The more Popeye ran from his own shame, the stronger the creature became. Realizing this, Popeye's heart filled with anger, not at the beast but at himself. He had spent too long running from his past, hiding behind his alcohol and broken spirit. Enough, Popeye shouted, his voice strong. I ain't running no more. With a mighty roar, Popeye charged the beast. His punches were swift and fierce, each blow not just destroying the creature, but breaking the chains of self-doubt that had bound him for so long. The creature roared in fury as Popeye continued to strike. It seemed to recoil with each punch, its body starting to disintegrate like smoke in the wind. Finally, with one last powerful strike, Popeye had defeated the creature. It vanished, leaving only the echoes of its growl behind. Popeye stood there, panting, covered in sweat and blood. Olive rushed to his side, wide-eyed in amazement. Popeye, you did it! Popeye looked down at his hands, feeling the strength that had returned to him. I didn't just fight a creature, Olive, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I fought myself, and I won. The next morning, as the sun rose over the forest, Popeye stood at the edge of the woods, his chest rising and falling with each breath. The park had never felt so alive. Olive Oil stood beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. You're back, Popeye. The man I always knew you were. Popeye smiled, a real smile for the first time in years. Yeah, I guess I am. And this time I'm here to stay. From that day on, Popeye was no longer the man haunted by his past. He was the protector of the park, a true hero once again. He didn't need to be a sailor anymore. He had found his place in the world. And as for Olive, she was there by his side, proud of the man he had become. Together, they walked into the future, knowing that no matter what challenges came their way, they would face them together. The park was safe, and Popeye had become the hero he was always meant to be.